Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Sarasvati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, wonderful. So let's read from verses 26, 27, and 28. Na buddhir bhedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate tattva-vittu mahabhaho gunakarma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. So last week we explored verse number 26, 27, and 28. Now, what happens here in 26? It says there's some advice for a wise person or Shrestha person, a great person. What is the advice here given? The advice is na buddhi bhedam janayet, means don't create or produce unsettlement in the minds of people. In the minds of whom? Which kinds of people? In the minds of people who are performing their karmas, who are doing action. Don't create unnecessary unsettlement in their minds. Rather, joshayet sarva karmani vidwan. That wise person, yuktaha, who's ever balanced, joshayet, should engage in all actions, samacharan, performing them well. So this verse is really to say that we shouldn't shake or awaken anyone violently. Somebody who is in the path of karma, who is fulfilling their desires, who's going through life and doing what they know, living how they know, we shouldn't just shake them violently and say, nope, stop everything, come to Jnana Yoga. Life is about the realization of truth, and wake up and it's time to realize Atman. No, because what happens is they become ubhaya bhrashta. Ubhaya bhrashta means they're neither prepared to realize the self, and neither also will they get the happiness of the world. So this person who we violently shake, they renounce the pleasure of the world, so they don't achieve that. But at the same time, they're not able to achieve the joy or the bliss of Atman. They're not able to do that because they were shaken violently. They were just brought violently, and their minds were not mature or ready enough. So it says here that nobody should be shaken or, moved so violently onto the path of Jnana Yoga. Everyone must evolve as per their capacity. So what we can do, it doesn't mean that we don't inspire them or don't show them or don't tell them about it. We do, but we also let them evolve as per their mental capacity and ability. And that's a beauty in it, right? Same way, like we don't, we shouldn't inject stuff on fruit so that it ripens quickly. Because although on the outside it looks very good, in the inside there's no taste, there's no juice when we do that. But when a fruit ripens in its own time, there's a lot of taste, and that can truly fulfill one's appetite. So in the same way, we shouldn't unsettle people's minds and shake it so violently. Let them do what they're doing. And yes, we can inspire. Yes, we can show them a little bit here and there, but let them evolve as they need to. Because this path is about maturity. It's about growing up. When people do grow, this is what they gravitate to this. They eventually will gravitate to this. So, na buddhi bedam janayet. And there's no point also in thinking, oh, we're inferior to them because we know more. Actually, we don't. You know, there's a beauty in everyone's path, whether they are following karma yoga, bhakti yoga, ashtanga yoga, or jnana yoga. There's such a beauty in it. There's such a devotion in it. And if ever at some point somebody thinks I know more or we know more, we lose out. Because don't forget, the most precious lessons we learn in life are from people, from nature, from animals even. So only if we become humble, then we can really learn from them. So it's not a question of someone's better than the other. It's just a question of readiness. When someone's ready, they will take on to something higher. And there's also a beauty in the stage where they are at. There's a beauty in the leaves of the fall, which are falling down, yellow. There's also a beauty in the summer leaves, which are luscious and green. But there's also a beauty in the winter trees, which have no leaves. Each of them is such a beauty in their own right. So there's no need to judge. Now, why shouldn't people be shaken up violently or, just quickly to Jnana Yoga? Because it says, although it is a twofold path, although Karma Yoga eventually leads to Jnana Yoga, there's a difference in the two. What happens in Karma Yoga, we see in verse 27, is Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha. So the person identifies with their body, mind, and intellect. Gunas here means these upadis, these conditionings, the body, the mind, the intellect, which are made of gunas, and they perform their respective functions. The body, the sense organs, the mind, the intellect, they perform their respective functions in their respective fields. And the one who is still not aware or self-aware, they think, I am doing this. I am the doer. I am seeing, I am hearing, I'm thinking, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the knower. There's this notion, ahankara vimudhatma. So one thinks that I am this ahankara, this ego, which we saw very clearly last time. So I am the doer. This is how this person thinks. But in the path of Jnana Yoga, which we see in verse 28, there's a great understanding that I'm the non-doer. Tattvavit, the knower of truth, gunakarma vibhagayo, the one who knows the difference of the gunas and the karmas. Meaning they know that the gunas, the body, mind, and intellect, which are made of gunas, they are just interacting and engaging in the respective karmas. So the eyes will see, the ears will hear, the mind will think, the legs will walk, everything will do its own thing. Guna karma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante. They will engage in their own karmas, in their own respective functions. And so therefore, the tattvavid na sajjate is not affected, because the knower of truth knows, I am that Atman, and I am not the one doing, the one seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. I am not that. Let it all happen in me. Like I am the screen and the movie is just happening. So whenever we identify with movement, we become part of the movie. And we learned that when we become part of the movie, we go through samsara. So because they're distinct in this, specifically, we saw also in many, many ways, but really in this light, that in one, the sense of doership is so strong. But in the other one is completely the non-doer. You cannot shake that person from one to the other overnight. Or you cannot just tell a person, now go into this. It's got to be a gradual process so that it's a meaningful process. There is no rush in nature. The sun doesn't rush to rise, isn't it? Have we seen the sun rise? The sun takes its time. First you see a little spark of light, then slowly more light, then more light, then more light. It's such a beautiful gradual process. How does a flower in nature open? It becomes a bud. Then after a while, it slowly opens up, and then that flower bears fruit. So we see what is natural is not hurry or rush. This is not natural. This is something we created. We created because we feel like we have no time and we can't wait for it. We created the fast forward button, right? We created all that fast forward, just I don't want to watch this. But nature, there's no fast forward in nature. There is just beauty and grace. And so that is evolution. Evolution is something that happens in beauty and in grace. Now we will see in verse 29. Now again, Lord Krishna reiterates this point to make sure that we get it. So the same idea that was in verse number 26, again, he reiterates it so that it hits home. So let us read this verse. Prakriter guna sambudhaha.
Prakriter guna sambudhaha.
Sajante guna karmasu.
Sajante guna karmasu.
Tana kritsna vido mandan.
Tana kritsna vido mandan.
Kritsna vinna vichalayet.
Kritsna vinna vichalayet.
Prakritir guna sambudhaha. Sajante guna karmasu. Tana kritsna vido mandan. Kritsna vinna vichalayet. So what does it say here? It says, Guna sambudhaha. Guna sambudhaha. Sambudhaha means those people who are deluded by gunas. Guna here again means that which is made out of gunas, which is these upadis, the body, the mind, the intellect, sense organs, etc. So the persons deluded by these gunas, prakritehi, of nature, they are sajjante, they are attached, guna karmasu, they are attached in the functions of those gunas, they are attached to that. And tana kritsna vidaha, those people who are akritsna vidaha, means they don't know the whole truth, they're not aware of the whole truth. Mandan because they're not aware of the whole truth. Kritsnavin navichalayet, the one of perfect knowledge should not unsettle their minds. Navichalayet should not unsettle their minds. So those deluded by the qualities of nature, gunas, are attached to the functions of the qualities. The man of perfect knowledge should not unsettle the foolish who are of imperfect knowledge. So first, let's see here. So remember, so in Bhaja Govindam, Adi Shankaracharya says, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudha. Mudha uses this word fool. We also saw this word before, fool. What is a fool? A fool is us. When we do what? F-O-O-L. When we focus on the outer and the lower, that's called fool. That's called fool, mandan. So when we focus on the outer, what is the outer? The body, the mind, the intellect, this is all outer. This is all outer. And it is a lower degree of reality. So the minute our minds, they go into the outer and that which is the lower degree of reality, that is called fool. So, mandan. And why is that person fool, or why do we become foolish? Why do we become foolish? Why do we take on this attitude? Akritsnavid. Kritsna means complete. Akritsnavid means sometimes we don't have that complete knowledge. Akritsnavid means somebody could have really, really good knowledge of economics, of science, of arts, of math. People could have PhDs. They could have knowledge of how to gain wealth, how to earn it and sustain it. They could have knowledge on how to run countries and governments. They could have all of this knowledge, which is what we call apara vidya. So people may be really strong in this. But if that person does not have knowledge of the self, they are still incomplete. They're still incomplete because only the knowledge of the self will make us from akritsna to kritsna. Only the knowledge of the self will make us from incomplete to complete. Only that knowledge. There's no other knowledge that can do that. So if we get any degree, any mastery over anything, what we're going to get is an ego boost. But what we need is an ego roast. And that is what only knowledge gives us. So at some point in time, we may be this is who we may be in this situation, right? We know so much, but maybe we're not yet there with the knowledge of the self. And maybe there are times that we focus on the outer or the lower. So because we identify as the doer, as the knower, as the seer, perceiver. We identify with that. And so Bhagavan Krishna says, the wise should not unsettle the minds of those who are in this state. Don't shake it violently. Let them slowly come to this. Inspire them. Share with them. Be that example for them. But let them come as they need to come. But don't shake them. Kritsnavin navichale. Nobody should unsettle the mind of somebody who is still in that realm of wanting to pursue the world. This knowledge is not easy. It's not easy. There are so many things happening in the world. There's so many things happening in the world. We all know, that the countries are just being destroyed. There's the virus that keeps going on. There's so many lives being lost. And we will naturally have people say that we have to do something. We have to get something done. We have to go here. We have to do this. And if somebody has that passion, has that will, then they should go and do that. We shouldn't pull them out and say, no, seek Brahman now. They might not be ready for it. So let them get into their field of action. Let them exhaust their vasanas. And as they turn inward, then this knowledge of Brahman can really, really take root in them. So now Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, I've said too many things in chapter 3. I've said too many things in chapter 3. I think you must be lost. So what I'm going to do, and yes, we are all lost because so many things happen. So what I'm going to do, I'll summarize for you the entire Karma Yoga in one verse. That's what I'm going to do. That's what Sri Krishna says. Entire Karma Yoga, I'll pack it into one verse and I'll tell you what that is. And that is verse number 30, which is the Sara, the essence of chapter 3. So let's read this. Mai sarvani karmani.
Mayi sarvani karmani.
Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa.
Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa.
Nirashir nirmamo bhutva.
Nirashir nirmamo bhutva.
Yudhyasva vigatajvaraha.
Yudhyasva vigadajvaraha.
Mai sarvani karmani. Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa. Nirashir nirmamo bhutva. Yudhyasya vigatajvaraha. Okay, so now Lord Krishna says, this is the summary of my teaching here. Mai, in me, what do? Sarvani karmani sanyasya. You renounce all your actions in me. Offer all your actions to me. How? Adhyatma chetasa, with the mind centered on the self. Nirashihi nirmamaha bhutva. You become nirashihi, free from hope. Nirmama, free from mindness, egoism. Having become that, yudhyasva, fight. Vigatajvaraha, and be free from mental fever. So, renouncing all actions in me, with the mind centered on the self, free from hope and egoism, free from mental fever. Fight. So now let's see why Lord Krishna is giving this advice. Let's see all the arguments he put forth in chapter 3. Then we will see the meaning of this summary. Okay, so now remember how chapter 3 opens up. Arjuna asks that question. You praised Jnana Yoga so much, and then you're telling me to engage in Karma Yoga. What is this? I am also confused. So Lord Krishna says, listen, his first reason to do Karma Yoga. First reason, in verses 4 to 9, Karma Yoga will prepare one for Sankhya Yoga. Therefore, Arjuna, engage in Karma Yoga. Second reason, verses 10 to 13, the Creator ordains that we should perform this Karma Yoga. Sahayagnya, we were created with the spirit of Yajna. And so when we were created, the Creator said, I created you with Yajna, therefore perform that. And when you do perform that, you will be free from sin. Then, third reason, from verse 14 to 16, he said, perform Karma Yoga because we are part of a cosmic cycle. We're part of a cosmic chain. And so we have to help the growth and not hinder it. Fourth reason, verses 17 to 19, Arjuna, perform Karma Yoga because you don't belong in that category of Atmaratihi, Atmatriptaha, Atmasantushtaha. You're not in that category yet. So make sure you perform Karma Yoga. Verse number 20, reason number 5. Great people like Janaka, etc. have attained perfection through the practice of Karma Yoga. Therefore, perform Karma Yoga. Reason 6, you are considered a Shreshtaha, a great person in society. What you do, people will follow. In this particular time, moment, and field, your dharma is to engage in battle. So therefore, you must perform it in the spirit of Karma Yoga. Then reason number 7, verses 22 to 24. Look at me, Lord Krishna says, I'm also performing Karma Yoga, even if I don't need to. And so Lord Krishna gives him 7 reasons why he should perform Karma Yoga, why we should perform Karma Yoga. Then verses 25 to 29 was a guidance To whom? To those wise people, not to hurry or force people into Jnana Yoga. Inspire them, teach them, bring them slowly, but note their capacity. So now Lord Krishna says, now Arjuna, I gave you 7 reasons, but in this 7 reasons, I think you forgot what I was trying to say. So this is what I was trying to say. The first thing, offer all actions to me. First thing, Mai sarvani karmani samyasya. Offer all actions to me. Now, what does this mean? How do we offer everything to God? How do we do that? So how do we practically do this? Do we have to say every day, God, I'm offering this to you? I wake up, God, I'm offering this to you. I'm offering that to you. I'm offering this to you. Do we have to keep doing that? No. How do we offer all actions to God? There's only one way. And that one way is adhyatma chetasa. That means offer ourselves to God. That's it. Make our mind adhyatma chetas. Adhyatma chetas means have the notion that I am the servant of God. That's what it means. So I don't need to offer each and every action to God. I offer you this, I offer you this. We do this in yajna. We do this in our prayers to remind us, because sometimes we forget. But the way is to offer ourselves to God. Offer ourselves to God. Say that, Bhagavan, let my mind, let my chetas just be in adhyatma. Adhyatma here means paramatma. Let my mind just be in you, and let me take that identity that I am your servant. I am your servant. I belong to you. I belong to God. And therefore, let everything I do be for you only. If we look at a mother, does a mother ever say, I'm offering this, I'm doing this for my children, and I'm doing that for my child, and I'm doing this for my child? There's no need to think that, oh, I have to offer this for my child. The minute we become a mother, you become a father, that's it. All your actions will include the thought of your children. It will automatically include it. Every decision will include the child. You don't have to say, I'm offering it for the child. This is for the child. You don't have to say that, because you've taken the identity as a mother or as a father. For somebody who is in charge of an organization, somebody doesn't need to say, I'm offering this for the organization or that for the organization. The person doesn't have to do that, because they've offered themselves. So in the same way, when we say, Bhagavan, I am your servant, that's Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. I offer everything to you. I offer myself to you. So what happens? That ego that we have becomes sego. Ego becomes S-E-G-O, means servant of God. Instead of this high and mighty thing, I am the servant of God. And that is called adhyatma chetasa. Adhyatma chetasa, when we become a servant of God, what happens? We become an instrument of God. We become an instrument of God. Nirashihi, this automatically happens. Asha means hope. Nirashihi means free from hope. Means free from hoping to have a specific result in the future. Whenever we use the word hope, we generally use it in the sense that I hope this happens. I hope we get this. I hope we achieve this. So we use these terms in a feeling or a sense of we want to get a specific result. We want this thing to happen. I hope this happens. But nirashihi means become free from that hope. Why? Because as an instrument of God, we change hope into faith. Turn hope into faith. So what happens is, thy will be done. It's not that I hope this happens, I hope this works out, I hope this goes through. It's hope into faith. Whatever happens, let it happen. It's okay. Thy will be done. Let God's will win. And let me tell you a secret. God's will win anyway. God will win anyway, right? You and I are never going to win against God. God will win anyway. So instead of surrendering at the end, there is no choice but to surrender. It's just a matter if I surrender in the beginning or the end. What will happen will happen. Now, if we surrender in the beginning, we will have so much peace. But if we fight, and then surrender in the end, we will have so much agitation. Bhagavan will win because Bhagavan is Bhagavan. So don't fight with that. Just say, okay, win. You win. It's okay. And it is great when Bhagavan wins because it's much better than we could have ever imagined. So Nirashihi is no need to hope. Just have faith. Let Bhagavan's will be done. It's okay. And we will find a lot of peace. A lot of peace. Guruji gives this very beautiful example. He says, when a sneeze is coming, now you will sneeze anyway, but in the beginning, some people try to fight it, and then eventually it will come out. Yeah, just let it go. The sneeze will come. He says very clearly, you have no choice but to surrender. Actually, we have no choice but to surrender. But if we surrender in the beginning, we will find more peace. So you choose when to surrender. But to surrender is actually not a choice. It's not a choice. Nirashihi. Then what also happens? Nirmamaha. Nirmamaha means we become free from mindness, free from this limited vision that this is for me, this is for my glory, this is for my project, my fame, my body, my mind. We become free from that because it becomes all about God. So it's free from hope, free from my own personal vision, my own personal want. Bhutva, that having become that, Yudhyasva Vigatajwaraha. Vigatajwaraha means then Yudhyasva, engage in duty, engage in whatever we have to do. Vigatajwaraha, free from any tension or stress. When we engage in karma yoga, it is actually stress-free. That's how we know it's karma yoga. If there is stress, it means it's not karma yoga. If there is stress, if there is agitation, if there is fear, that means it's not karma yoga. It's karma bhoga. It's bhoga only. But if there is a sense of calmness, if there's a sense of fearlessness, of faith, that means it's karma yoga. There's no jwara. There's no pressure or stress or tension in karma yoga because we've offered everything to God. So we just let God take over us. Just let God take over us. Let God use us as an instrument. And then there will be no pressure or such tension. Now, so now let's just now look at this in more ways than one, because Gurudev has also written so beautifully here. So first I will bring up this, we talked before about this acronym DIP, dedicate, I, be an instrument, P, accept everything as prasad. That is from this verse, right? So what is that? Nirmamaha is the dedicate. Dedicate to something higher means you replace me with we, dedicated to something higher. There's no mindness. There's nothing about me here. Then the I is become an instrument, adhyatma chetasa, that attitude of being an instrument of God. Then the P is accept everything as prasad, nirashihi. Nirashihi, be free from hope. So what happens is, with the D, you will replace me with we when we dedicate. When we become an instrument, we replace our own wants, our own needs with our own will, with God's will. And nirashihi, we replace this hope with faith. And then what happens when we dip ourselves into action? Vigatajvaraha, we become free from feverish anxiety. We, instead of having so much pressure, we have poise. This is what happens. So this whole dip ourselves into action is from this verse. Now, seeing Puja Gurudev's commentary, he gives the commentary that Nirmamaha is free from past notions, because the ego is made up of past, right? The ego is formed by past memories. That's how the ego is formed. Nirashihi, free from future anxiety. And Vigatajvaraha, free from such excitement in the present. And when one acts like this, that's called Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga, dedicate oneself to the higher, be an instrument of God, and accept everything as God's will. Vigatajvaraha, and do our dharma, do our duties. This is the essence of Karma Yoga. Now, someone might say, but where do you see this? Can you give me an example? Now, so I was trying to think of an example, and I could only think of one person. That is Sri Rama. Yesterday was Ram Navami. So this is a very nice example of Sri Rama and how he exemplified all of this in one event in Tulasi Ramayana. So now I'm sure you all know the story of Ramayana. And this is what happens in the Swayamvara. In the Swayamvara, King Janaka had invited so many people to break this Shiva Dhanush, this bow of Bhagavan Shiva. And it is said that Sita Devi used to play with this Dhanush when she was a young girl. She used to play with this Dhanush. And so King Janaka said, whoever marries her has to break that Dhanush. He also has to be at par with her. Because, Sita was the apple of his heart, the apple of his eye. So anyway, he called many kings to come. And he said, now whoever breaks this Dhanush will win the hand of Sita. And so many people came and they all tried, but they couldn't, right? So many people tried, they couldn't even lift it. And Janaka was just, his face was down. Everybody was saying, oh my God, what will happen? What will happen? So much tension there in the room. And King Janaka says that nobody, I don't think anybody here can break this Shiva Dhanush. I made a mistake by having this Swayamvara, and I think everybody should go home. And so he says all of this, and you know what happens? Lakshmana gets angry. Lakshmana gets up and he says, how can you do that? How can you speak like this when Sri Rama is here? I myself can pick up that Shiva Dhanush and break it. And how can you say all these words when Sri Rama is here? And Sri Rama just looks at Lakshmana. Lakshmana calms down. And then what happens? Does Sri Rama stand up? No. You see what he does. Uttahu Rama, bhanjahu bhavachapa, metahu tata janaka paritapa. Vishwamitraji looks at Rama and says, Uttahu Rama, get up, Rama. Bhanjahu bhavachapa. You go and break that Shiva Dhanush. Metahu tata janaka paritapa. It says you remove all the sorrow of this King Janaka. So then what does Sri Rama do? Suni Guru Dakshina charana sirunava. He heard the voice of his Guru. Then charana sirunava. He bowed at the feet of his Guru. Harashu vishadu na kachu ura ava. He didn't have any joy or sorrow. He was equipoise. Tade vai uthi sahaja subhai. Then, he stood up with such grace when he stood up. Tavani juba mriga raju lajai. It's like he put a young lion to shame the way he stood up. Now, this is just how Sri Rama stood up. Okay, so he stood up in this way, and he stood up and he does pranam to the bow of Shiva. And then after that, he goes and everybody's looking at each other. And it is said that Sita Mata, it's said that it's as if so many, like whole lifetimes passed by. It was taking so long. She was waiting for the bow to break. And finally, Sri Rama breaks that bow. Now, this is a very simple episode in Ramayana. Sri Rama breaks that bow. And of course, after he breaks that bow, he and Sita Mata get married. Then he gets to be with Sita Mata. But this is Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya. How did Sri Rama approach this? Sri Rama liked Sita Mata. They liked each other. They met each other in the garden before this, and they liked each other. But he did not act on his own. Adhyatma Chetasa. He considered himself as a servant of God, of Guru. So he only stood up. He didn't stand up that whole time. He only stood up when his Guru said, Uttahu Rama. Then only he got up. So Adhyatma Chetasa. And Nirmama means it was not his, he didn't go on his intention or his will, only his Guru. And when he went, he was without harsha or vishada, without joy or sorrow. He was so equipoise. So nirashihi, no nothing, no hope, just complete equanimity. And he walked with such grace, Vigatajvaraha, walked with such grace to that Shiva Dhanush. And it's not easy. Everybody was looking at him, but he maintained his poise, completely surrendered to his Guru. And when he picks up that bow, he breaks the bow. That breaking of the bow is a symbol of breaking the ego. When somebody gets rooted in Karma Yoga, what happens is they're ready then to break this ego. And when he breaks that Shiva Dhanush that symbolizes the ego, what does he attain? He attains Sita Devi, who is the embodiment of peace. When the ego is broken, we finally get peace. This is Yudhyasva Vigatanchvaraha. This is how this is demonstrated in our scriptures. So you can see in our simple stories, our itihasas, our historical stories in Ramayana and Mahabharata, these simple instances, what the Bhagavad Gita tells us, this shows us. And it gives us a lot of insight on how we should live life. So if we want to know the heart of the third chapter, it is this verse. Mai sarvan karmani. Offer oneself to God. We belong to God. Adhyatma chetasa. And surrender, because we have no option but to surrender. Nirashi, nirmamaha bhutva, without any mindness. And yudhyasva means engage in our respective duties. Vigatajvaraha, without pressure, stress, tension. Just be. Belonging to God is the most beautiful thing in the world. If we can do that or find a way to do that, then life will really be free from all of this anxiety. We won't need anything else to combat anxiety, just God. Now, Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, those who are able to follow this, what happens is they are free from actions. They become free from actions. So one who steadfastly follows the path of Karma Yoga, they become free from it. And mind you, karma yoga is not easy. It's not easy. Huh? Don't think that karma yoga, it's something that, we can just do it. It's hard. It's hard to be completely, solely dedicated to God. It's not easy. Some people have the question that if I belong to God and if I offer myself to God, what about my family? And what about my friends? And what about my work? It's as simple as this. All identities become sublimated into that. So my primary identity is I am a seeker, I am a servant of God. And that is my primary identity. So I'm a seeker or servant of God and a parent. I'm a servant of God and a friend. I'm a servant of God and a student or a teacher. Everything is first, I'm a servant of God. And when we do everything in that line, from that vision, from that standpoint, then we become better parents, better guides, better friends, better children. We become better at everything we do. Because the underlying thing that guides us is that we are a servant of God. So Lord Krishna says, plus points for those who follow this. What is the plus point? Yete matamidam nityam.
Ye me matamidam nityam.
Anutishtanti manavaha.
Anutishtanti manavaha.
Shraddhavanto nusuyantaha.
Shraddhavanto nasuyantaha.
Muchyante tepi karmabhihi.
Muchyante tepi karmabhihi.
Ye me matamidam nityam. Anutishtanti manavaha. Shraddhavanto nasuyantaha. Muchyante tepi karmabhihi. So he says, Ye me, those who me matam idam nityam, those who this teaching of mine me matam idam nityam anutishtanti, they constantly practice this. Who manavaha means all beings constantly practice this. Shraddhavantaha, those who are full of faith. Anusuyantaha, not caviling or not finding faults in it. Muchyante, they are freed. Muchyante te, they are freed. Api, also karmabhi, from all actions. What does this mean? Those who constantly practice this teaching of mind, full of faith without caviling, they too are freed from actions. So those who practice what of mind? So those who practice idam here means karma yoga. Those who practice this karma yoga, which I just spoke about in verse 30. Those who practice this, how nityam, constantly, make this constantly a part of their lives. Anutishtanti means anu. After listening to what it is, what is the requirement of karma yoga? Tishtanti, the one after listening who actually practices it, who abides in it. Manavaha, all people, not a specific gender, not a specific religion, not a specific creed, all people. This is for all people. Those who practice this, and those shraddhavanta, those who have a lot of faith, and those who don't find fault, they are freed from karma. What do you mean they're freed from karma? They're freed from punya and papa. In Sanatana Dharma, in the Bhagavad Gita, when we say free from karma, what we mean here is free from karma phala, free from the results of actions. And when we mean free from the results of actions, both merits and demerits, the person becomes free from that, which means they come slowly to jnana yoga. We want to be free from, obviously, papas. We want to be free from sins or negative results that come to us, because we don't want to experience that sadness or that sorrow. But here we also want to be free from the joy that comes to us, because we don't want to be the experiencer of joy. We don't want to be the experiencer of sorrow. We don't want to be the experiencer of joy, because we don't want to be the experiencer. We don't want to be the knower. We don't want to be the seer. We want to be the witness of it. So when he says, be free from all the punyas and papas, means they become free from being the experiencer eventually, because they then come to jnana yoga. They become free from that. So if one constantly practices this karma yoga, they will come to jnana yoga. Now the question is, what if I am practicing karma yoga, but I'm also very much aware of this knowledge that I am the self, I am the non-doer, I am the non-enjoyer? What do I do? Well, slowly integrate the practice of being a witness in one's life. Slowly integrate the practice of, I am the witness of my actions. I am the witness of whatever's happening. So the practice, how do you do this? How do you do this? What are the practical applications of this? Number one, start thinking of your instruments as instruments. Start thinking of the body, the mind, the intellect as faculties, as equipments, as instruments, and not my instruments, as instruments. So instead of thinking about ourselves as my body is going through this, the body is going through it. Switch the language in the mind. Already make that switch in the language. The body is going through this. The mind is moving up and down. The intellect is feeling this. The ego is feeling this. Already make that shift in language. So what that does, it creates a distance. It creates a distance, and it creates an awareness that something apart from me is going through this experience. Not me, but something apart from me is going through this experience. So that is number one. Number one practice, this is anyone can do. Number two practice is, at certain points of the day, draw the attention to the source. Instead of mind going out into all the things we have to do, just draw it to be. Don't keep it out to do, draw it in to be. This is something we must do, because the mind is, it's the vasana is just pushing it out. So don't draw it out to do, draw it in to be. And when we draw it into be, then just remain as a witness. Let the thoughts just come and go. But we can do this at various parts of the day. Just let it come and go, let it come and go. Watch your own tamasha, as Gurudev says it. Watch the own tamasha and let it happen. So these two practices, if we can do in our lives, we can practice in our lives, then this slowly, this knowledge will be very firm. And then after that, everything we know will be just a play. So if I am in the realm of karma yoga, but I do have awareness of myself, but I'm maybe not so rooted in it, what can I do? This is what we can do. Do these two practices of keeping or distancing ourselves from our own instruments and having time where we draw the mind in. The more we're able to draw the mind in, it gets used to being drawn in. Then it gets used to understanding that its real nature is the self, that Atma. So those who come into the path of karma yoga, eventually one will be free from that very doership, enjoyership, experiencership of action. That will happen. Now let us say this is also hard for me to do. 1 and 2, I don't buy it. Don't worry about it. Simple devotion to God, and that will also help us. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, what is the story? Lord Krishna steals the butter from the Gopis. Every time they make butter, they make butter, they make butter. What happens? He goes there, he steals the butter, he steals the butter, he eats it. What is that? This is this verse. What do the gopis have? They have knowledge and they have faith. And in their karma is making the butter. Karma phala is that actual butter in the pot is the karma phala, the results of their actions. And when Bhagavan Krishna comes to eat the butter, he's stealing the results of their actions. That's what he's doing. He's stealing the results of their actions. And that's why he eats all the butter. It's not that he's greedy. He's taking away their karma phala. He's taking away their karma phala so that they're muchante. They are freed from all of this. That simple story means only this. So if one says that's all too difficult, then you just have devotion. Just have devotion. That also, because even here it says, if that person cannot continue practicing this, cannot practice these witnessship, sakshi bhava, shraddhavan api, even that one who has faith, has devotion in God, that person will also be freed. But if that person doesn't also have faith, anasuyantaha, even the person who is there may not have faith but doesn't find fault in this. Doesn't find fault mean is open to the teaching. The one who's just open to the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. Let's say, look, I don't buy this right now. I don't have faith in it right now, but I'm open. This seems kind of interesting, so I'm open. Even this person will eventually be freed because the one who's open will begin to have faith. And the one who has faith will begin to practice. Because when we have faith, we put forth effort. If we do not have faith, we will not put forth effort. That's the value of faith. When you believe in something, when you trust in something, you give your all to it. But if we don't put forth effort. So even that faith will help us practice. And those who do this, they will be freed from karma, both punya and papa. Then Lord Krishna goes to say, but what if somebody doesn't follow this? Then that he also says in the next verse, that we will see next time. And after that, he will say something so interesting. He will say, Arjuna will say, Lord Krishna, your karma yoga seems so incredibly cool. And I wonder why, despite it being so cool, how come some people still don't do it? What's the deal? So Lord Krishna will also tell us that next week. All right. So I'll just summarize in 50 seconds, 30 seconds. But today we saw the beautiful essence of karma yoga. Just being a servant of God. Adhyatma chetasa. Be a servant of God. Be free from hope. Turn hope into faith. Turn that ego into seago. Turn that ego into servant of God. Turn that pressure into poise. Turn that me into we. And we do all of this. If we do all of this, then we do become that servant of God. And that karma yoga is such a beautiful thing because it frees us from action eventually as we move on to jnana yoga. All right, so we'll stop here. I'll say the closing prayer and I have something to share with you. So if you can stay back, that would be wonderful. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, wonderful.